You're about to hear a story that begins with a single act of kindness, small, quiet, almost forgettable. But before the end, that tiny act will shake the sky itself. If you want more stories where humanity surprises the entire galaxy, make sure you subscribe, like, and stay till the very end, because this one is deeply human. Part 1. The child under the broken street lamp night had a way of swallowing the city whole. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, and the power grid in District 12 had collapsed like wet cardboard. Most people stayed inside, hiding from the storm, pretending the world outside didn't exist. But you weren't most people. You had always been the kind of person who didn't walk away from something broken. Machines, people, neighborhoods, it didn't matter. If something needed fixing, you tried. That's why you were outside that night, jacket soaked, boots sinking into puddles, carrying a bag of emergency rations for the shelter you volunteered at. You weren't expecting anything unusual, not even when the wind shifted, not even when the hairs on your neck rose. But then you saw him, a small figure curled beneath a shattered street lamp, glowing faintly in the darkness. Not glowing like a phone screen or a reflection, no. He glowed from within, like embers hidden in deep snow. You froze. He froze. The rain hissed as it touched his skin, steaming away in tiny clouds. A child. Definitely a child, but absolutely not human. His limbs were too thin, his skin almost translucent, his eyes too large, too bright, shimmering like liquid silver, stirred by fear. He looked moments from collapsing. You stepped closer. "Hey," you whispered, raising your hands in peace. "Are you hurt?" He blinked, his throat trembling as he tried to form words. When he finally spoke, the sound was cracked, trembling and painfully soft. Hun-grai. Just one word. A word you understood better than most. You knelt, slowly opening your bag. His pupils dilated at the sight of the food packet's nutrient bars, compressed bread, water. You held one out. He didn't snatch it. He didn't lunge. He just stared at it, as if waiting for permission to believe it was real. "It's okay," you murmured. "Take it." He reached out with shaking hands, and ate like someone who hadn't eaten in days, maybe weeks. You watched him swallow, trembling, every bite a battle. He must have been alone for a very, very long time. When he finished, he looked at you again, really looked. And for the first time, you noticed the faint shimmer around him. A distortion. A field. Some kind of technology. Maybe. You didn't know. But he reached out a hand in return, tiny, fragile, grasping at hope, and touched your wrist. His skin was warm, too warm. He closed his eyes and whispered something in a language you didn't understand. A second later, his body flickered like static, and he vanished into thin air. No sound, no flash, no warning. Just gone. You stood there alone under the broken street lamp, rain hammering your shoulders, wondering if you had imagined everything. But you hadn't, because the scorch mark he'd left on the pavement was still warm. The month that followed, you didn't tell anyone. Who would believe you? A starving alien child you fed in the middle of a blackout district? Someone who could teleport, or who knows what else. You kept quiet. You went to work. You slept barely. You replayed the moment over and over. Something inside, you knew it mattered. But you couldn't guess how much. Not until the sky tore open. The day Earth went silent, the warning sirens began at dawn. The news broadcasts choked with static. The power grids flickered. Then failed. You went outside with everyone else, neck craning up at the sound of thunder that wasn't thunder. Atmospheric breaches. Multiple. Hundreds. Your entire city froze as colossal shadowed forms pierced the clouds like knives. Ships. Warships, an entire alien armada. Panic spread like fire. Some people screamed. Some ran. Some fell to their knees. You didn't move. Because the moment you saw the ships, a sinking dread curled in your stomach. You recognized the faint silhouette of their hulls, the way their energy shimmered. It was the same glow the starving child had carried in his skin. He wasn't just a refugee. He had been running from something. And now that something had come to Earth, the ultimatum, the largest ship descended, splitting the clouds apart. Its presence felt like a mountain lowering itself onto the sky. A deep, resonant voice echoed across every speaker, every device, vibrating the bones in your chest. People of Earth, you harbor what is ours. Release the fugitive child, and your planet will not be destroyed. You felt your blood run cold. You never even knew his name. The broadcast repeated, "Surrender the child, or Earth will burn." People panicked harder now, every city, every street, every government scrambling desperately. No one had seen the child. No one had any record of him, except you, and you had nothing to give them. The world leaders begged for another option. The alien commander gave none. 24 hours, he said. Then your species ends. The world's loneliest walk. That night, you walked the same path where you had first seen him. Same street lamp, same rain, same suffocating darkness. You whispered into the empty air, "I don't know where you are, but if you can hear me, they're going to destroy us. Please, please come back." Nothing answered but the storm. You stayed there for hours, hope draining away like rainwater down a gutter. Eventually, exhausted and defeated, you stood up to leave. And that's when the air changed. Not like a breeze, more like the world itself inhaled. You turned. Light shimmered. Air bent. Sound warped. A small form appeared on the pavement, kneeling, trembling. The child. He was older than you remembered. Not physically, emotionally. There was a weight in his eyes now. A sorrow far too heavy for someone so young. He looked at you. And broke. He collapsed into your arms, sobbing in a sound that wasn't human, but meant exactly the same thing in every language. "I didn't want them to find you," he whispered. "I didn't want them to hurt you. You were the first." He pressed a trembling hand to his chest. Double quotes, ... the first to show me kindness. You swallowed hard. "They want you," you whispered. "If you don't go to them, they'll destroy Earth." He closed his eyes. "I know." You waited for him to run, to disappear again, to save himself. But instead, he stood up straight or small as he was, and turned his face to the sky. "I won't let them harm your world," he said quietly. "Not after what you did for me." Your voice cracked. "What can you do?" "They have thousands of ships." He looked at you. And for the first time, you saw not a starving child, but something else entirely. Something powerful, something royal, something dangerous. "I am not their prisoner," he said. "I am their heir." Your heart stopped. "And I will return with my own." The promise he held your hand. "Thank you," he whispered, "for feeding me when I was nothing." Then he stepped back. His body shimmered, brighter than before. But this time he wasn't flickering. He wasn't weak. He was igniting. The light intensified, forming a swirling vortex around him, blue, silver, white, until you could barely look directly at him. And then, with a final glance, he was gone. Not vanished, departed. With intention, with purpose. The longest night in human history, the alien armada hovered above Earth, engines powered, weapons primed. 24 hours dwindled into 12. Then 8, then 4. The governments of the world prepared evacuation shelters. People prayed, screamed, held each other. You sat alone on your rooftop, staring at the stars, whispering, "Please come back, please." As the deadline approached, the alien commander made one final announcement. "Your time is up." You closed your eyes. And the sky answered, but not the way anyone expected. The clouds split open, starlight surged. Dozens, no, hundreds of wormholes exploded into existence. Then thousands. The world watched as ship after ship tore into reality. Sleek vessels of silver and white, engines singing like harmonics, moving in perfect formation. 10,000 starships. 10,000. The first in the front bore a royal crest, the same symbol that had briefly shimmered in the child's eyes. A transmission nailed itself across the sky. A young voice, steady, cold, commanding. "This planet is under my protection." Your breath caught. It was him. The starving child you fed under a broken street lamp. Except he wasn't starving anymore. He was a prince. And he had returned. "Hey, everyone. Still here? Still awake? If you are, that's fine. Settle back into the dark for part 2. The War Drums Haven. Tea started yet, but the sky is already trembling, and the boy you saved has returned with a fleet that shouldn't exist. Let's go back into the story. Part 2. The prince who declared war for you morning broke without sunrise. Because the sky was no longer sky. It was filled, horizon to horizon, with alien warships. Not the invaders that had threatened Earth, but the 10,000 silver vessels belonging to the boy you once found starving under a broken street lamp. People froze. Cameras turned upward. News drones streamed nonstop. Every nation on Earth stopped breathing at the same time. Earth had begged for allies for decades. None ever came. But now, a single child you fed was answering the call with an armada. The first contact from him, not them. The invader fleet remained steady in the upper atmosphere, weapons armed, targeting systems locked. But the prince's fleet, his 10,000 ships, didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, the lead vessel descended. Gracefully, slowly, like a falling star deciding to stop just above the ground. Every window in your city rattled. The pressure changed. Your bones vibrated. You ran outside with everyone else. A massive projection shimmered to life across the skyline. A familiar face, now sharper, older, radiating authority, even though he was still unmistakably a child. Silver eyes, warm skin glowing with an inner light. A crest shaped like a spire, and 2 rings etched onto his forehead. He spoke softly, but his voice carried like thunder wrapped in velvet. "People of Earth, this is your warning." The crowd around you fell into a hush so deep it felt like the air itself stopped moving. "Do not surrender to the ones who hunt me. They are traitors, murderers, and they will destroy you even if you obey." He paused. His eyes shifted, and for a fraction of a second, only you noticed, he softened, as if he were looking directly at you. "You helped me when I was lost. Now I will help you when you are cornered." The people around you didn't. Do you understand why the princess' voice cracked slightly at that line? But you did. The enemy responds. A deep metallic roar split the sky as the invader commander broadcast again, angrier, harsher, vibrating with something primal. "Royal fugitive, you have violated the covenant. Stand down and surrender." The prince's gaze hardened. He raised his chin slightly. "You first," the invader commander snarled. "Your mother's throne will be yours to inherit only if you live to reach it, which you will not." A murmur rippled through Earth's cities. The prince, the starving child you fed, was heir to an empire powerful enough to rival galaxies. You didn't know what that meant, but the invaders did, and they hated it. The commander barked, "Hand over the boy, or we erase Earth." The crowd gasped. People screamed. Sirens erupted again. But the prince's voice dropped, low, dangerous, terrifyingly calm. "If you touch this planet, you will die before your engines finish firing." The invaders responded the only way tyrants know how, with violence. Dozens of enemy destroyers broke formation and turned toward Earth, weapons glowing. It had begun. The first battle, you expected lasers, explosions, annihilation. What you got was something worse and something better. The prince raised his hand, just one tiny hand. From his flagship, a ripple spread through the air. Not a beam, not a drone, but a shimmering wave like sunlight on water. The wave hit the descending enemy ships, and their engines died instantly. Their weapons powered down. Their shields collapsed. Their thrusters sputtered. One by one, the ships plummeted hundreds of meters before being caught, gently, impossibly gently, by invisible force fields deployed from the prince's armada. No crack, no fire, no destruction. He didn't kill them. He simply neutralized them. The world stared. You stared. No one breathed. Even the invader commander went silent. Finally, the prince spoke. Leave, before I stop holding back. A dangerous truth, the invaders didn't retreat. They reorganized. And that terrified the prince more than anything, because he knew exactly what they were preparing. A purge. The enemy ships drew back into a tight, perfect sphere. Energy readings spiked. A hum built in the air, like a storm gathering inside your bones. Every scientist on Earth began screaming into microphones. That's a planet killer formation. They can't, there's nitrogen monoxide way. We can't survive that. The prince clenched his fists. His voice trembled, almost imperceptibly. You're forcing my hand. The projected image wavered. A flicker of pain crossed his face. He didn't want this fight. Not like this. Not here. He didn't want Earth to see what he truly was. But they gave him no choice. He comes to you before the first strike could be launched. A beam of white light hit the ground in front of you. The light faded, and he stood there, the alien child you once fed bread and water to, dressed in ceremonial armor that pulsed with living circuits and shifting runes. Still small, still young, but his presence was enormous. A gravitational field of energy and authority. Everyone around you collapsed to their knees instinctively, not out of worship, out of pure overwhelm. But he walked past them all and came straight to you. His voice, when he spoke, was not royal. It was soft. I didn't want to drag your world into my war. You swallowed hard. Why are they after you? He hesitated, and then finally told you the truth. The story he never wanted to speak. He was not just a prince. He wasn't just heir to a throne. He was heir to a weapon. A living technology embedded in his DNA, an ancient galaxy-shaping artifact known as the Vir Code. His mother protected him. But her generals, jealous, brutal, ambitious, wanted the code for themselves. Whoever held it could conquer star systems. So they tried to kill him. He escaped, barely, starving, alone, hunted. He fled across worlds until his teleportation device malfunctioned, and dropped him on Earth, where you found him, where you fed him, where you gave him something no palace, no throne, no armada ever had. Kindness without obligation, compassion without fear. He touched your sleeve now, the same way he did that night. You helped me when I was dying, and I will not let them burn your world for it. The choice you make. Let me help, you whispered. He shook his head fiercely. No, Earth is fragile. Your species isn't ready for a war like this. You stepped closer. You're a child fighting an empire alone. He looked up at you with those silver, trembling eyes. Not alone. The battle that begins with the whisper alarms shrieked across the sky again. The invader ships powered their planet killer array. The prince exhaled shakily. It has to be now. He closed his eyes. A pulse of energy spread from him, brighter than sunrise, softer than moonlight. 10,000 royal ships responded instantly, pivoting into formation around Earth, like a shield made of starlight. The prince opened his eyes and whispered, "Protect." The armada obeyed. A dome of silver energy enveloped Earth. The enemy fired. The planet killer beam hit the shield, and the entire world shuddered like a struck bell. Skyscrapers vibrated, Mountains groaned. The oceans rippled. People screamed. The ground shook. The world nearly cracked. But it held. Barely. The prince staggered. He fell to one knee. Blood, glowing blue-white, dripped down his arm. You caught him instinctively. He breathed hard. The shield won't survive another hit. Your chest tightened. What do we do? He looked up, and in his eyes, you saw something terrifying. Resolve. His final gambit, he whispered. I'm going to them. You froze. They'll kill you. He shook his head. Not if they think they've already won. You realized what he meant. He wasn't going to surrender. He was going to trick them. He was going to make the traitor generals believe they had the code, his code, so they would drop their guard. Then his fleet would strike. But the risk? If he miscalculated even slightly, he wouldn't survive. Don't do this, you whispered. He leaned forward until his forehead touched your chest. A gesture of trust in his culture. A gesture of farewell. You once told me life mattered. Mine didn't. Not to anyone. Not until you. Your throat tightened. You matter, you whispered. He closed his eyes. I know. Because you fed me. Because you didn't treat me like a weapon. He took a shaking breath. That's why I have to do this. Not for my throne. Not for my people. For you. Before you could speak, he vanished. A streak of silver light blasting into the sky. Straight toward the enemy armada. Straight toward death. The world watches a child confront an empire every screen, every rooftop, every street. Humanity watched the smallest, weakest being in the sky rise alone toward the enemy. No armor, no escort, no army beside him. Just a child and the memory of a meal you gave him. The invader commander's voice erupted. Royal fugitive approaching. Capture him. Prepare the extraction pods. The prince stopped in front of the colossal flagship, dwarfed by its size. He lifted his chin and spoke 3 words that made the galaxy tremble. I surrender myself. You gasped. The entire world gasped. The enemy ships opened. Light swallowed him whole. The prince was gone. Taken. And Earth? Left defenseless. Humanity stood in silence, staring at the sky, waiting for destruction, waiting for the end. But the prince had one last message. Your phone buzzed. One notification. One line. From an unknown frequency impossible for human devices to receive. It said only, trust me. And then, be ready. Hey everyone, still here, still awake? If you are, that's fine. This is the final part. The part where the sky breaks. The truth comes out, and a single human act of kindness rewrites a galaxy. Let's return to the moment everything was supposed to end. Part 3. The prince's last stand silence fell over Earth like a burial cloth. Every screen showed the same thing. The prince, the starving child you once fed, swallowed by white light as the enemy flagship took him aboard. His fleet didn't move. Not a single ship. They hovered in perfect formation around Earth, unmoving, holding their breath, just like humanity. Because none of them understood the message you received. Only you had seen the boy's last words. Trust me. Be ready. Inside the flagship, a throne of lies deep inside the enemy vessel, the air was cold. Too cold for someone his age. Energy cuffs snapped around his wrists. Heavy, brutal, humming with suppressive force. He didn't resist. That was part of the plan. The traitor commander stepped forward, tall, armored, face sharp like a blade forged for cruelty. His voice dripped triumph. The Vir code is finally ours. He grabbed the prince's chin, forcing his face upward. Any last words, boy? Silver eyes, soft but steady, looked right back, and the prince smiled. Just a little. You're already losing. The commander frowned. Then something else happened. Something very strange. The cuffs, designed to lock away the ancient living technology inside the prince's DNA, flickered. Once, twice, then pulsed with a light the commander had never seen. "Impossible," he muttered. "The suppressors are changing?" The prince lowered his voice until it was barely a whisper. "They respond to kindness or cruelty." Then, louder, "And you are cruel." The cuffs shattered. A blinding wave exploded outward. Not heat, not energy, memory. The ship screamed. Crew members collapsed. Systems malfunctioned. Ancient technology awakened inside the boy. The Heir code, rewriting itself, reshaping the very circuits of the ship. The commander howled. "What have you?" "You wanted the code," the prince said softly, rising to his feet. "Now you're inside it. Earth, the moment everything breaks from the ground." Humanity watched as the enemy's flagship flickered, its lights dimming, the hull distorting like ripples across a mirror. Then came the sound. A deep, low hum that resonated across the atmosphere. You didn't understand it, but his fleet did. 10,000 ships immediately changed formation. They knew the signal. They had been waiting for it. The prince had not surrendered. He had infiltrated. And now? He was turning the enemy's own flagship into a weapon. But the enemy wasn't finished. The traitor fleets surrounding the flagship ignited their cores. If they couldn't extract the Heir code, they would destroy it, even if it meant tearing their own commander apart. Planet-killer weapons began to charge again, aimed not at Earth this time, but at the prince. The choice you make. Again, alarms echoed across the city as the sky glowed red. People cried, screamed, ran. But you didn't. You ran toward the military tower, pushing through locked doors, security barriers, panicked crowds. You didn't know what you were doing, only that you had to. No weapon on Earth could stop a planet killer. No message from Earth could reach the alien commanders. But maybe, just maybe, you could reach him. You climbed the tower, reached the broadcast system, and slammed your hand onto the open channel control. Your voice shook, but it carried across radio waves, across satellites, across the shield, across space, straight toward the flagship. Come back. Your breath trembled. Come back to the world that fed you. Come back to the person who believes in you. Don't do this alone. Your voice cracked, raw, fragile, painfully human. You don't have to fight like a weapon. Fight like someone who was loved. Silence followed. For a moment, you feared he hadn't heard. Then, a whisper, soft, weak, breaking. "I'm trying." Inside the flagship, he fights with your voice, with your words echoing in him. The prince pushed harder against the code's ancient, crushing weight. His bones trembled. His skin burned. The circuits in the walls screamed like living things. He pressed his palm to the flagship's core. He whispered the last line you spoke. "Someone loved you." And the ship answered. A cascade of energy ripped through the flagship, a pulse of pure rewriting force that spread out like a nova. The traitor fleet stopped firing. Their weapons turned off. Their targeting arrays spun. Their engines stalled. The code had jumped. From Prince to flagship to every enemy ship in range. Earth looks up and sees the impossible. The enemy armada went still, not defeated, not destroyed. Something stranger, converted. Their ships reconfigured mid-air, hulls shifting, engines bending, colors bleeding from red to silver. Then their lights turned the same gentle blue-white glow the prince always carried. Every screen on Earth blinked at once. A single message appeared. Hostile programming removed. New directive. Protect the prince. Humanity didn't understand it. But the prince's fleet did. Because now the enemy's own fleet belonged to him. But victory came at a cost. Inside the flagship, the prince fell to his knees. The Heir code was ancient, brutal, never meant to be wielded by someone so young. His eyes dimmed. His glow flickered. He whispered, barely audible. Too much? I used too much? The walls of the flagship trembled. If he collapsed, the code would spiral. The ship could implode. He could die. Earth could still die with him. But before the collapse could take him, someone grabbed his hand. Not a soldier. Not a royal guard. You. Because when the enemy ship's systems flipped, one of their shuttles landed automatically, bringing you inside. You knelt beside him. He looked up at you with cloudy, fading eyes. You? Shouldn't be here. You squeezed his hand. I wasn't going to let you die alone. He smiled, tired, relieved, impossibly young again, and collapsed against you. The air and the human, the flagship stabilized. The lights steadied. The code recognized your presence, the person the prince valued, and dialed down its surge. He opened his eyes slowly. You came for me, he whispered. You saved my planet, you whispered back. He shook his head weakly. No, you saved me first. He leaned into you, small, warm, exhausted, not a prince, not a weapon, just a child who had never been held by someone who cared. And now he was in your arms, alive, safe. The new sky hours later, Earth watched the strangest sight in human history. 10,000 ships forming a protective halo around the planet, joined now by more than 8,000 enemy ships, all reconfigured, repurposed, no longer murderous but peaceful. A new constellation, a crown around Earth, a crown of two empires that had once been enemies. At the center, the prince's flagship hovered low over your city, and from its heart, a beam of gentle white light opened. He walked out, slower this time, leaning on his ceremonial staff, still recovering. And he came straight to you, not to any world leader, not to any general, to the human who fed him. He bowed his head, a gesture of highest respect in his culture. You saved me, he said softly. And now my fleets will protect your world until the stars fade. People gasped. Cameras flashed. Diplomats cried. Humanity had gained something it never expected. Not a ruler, not a god. A friend, a protector. A child who once starved under a broken street lamp, now heir to a galactic throne, promised Earth safety that no empire in history ever had. But then he said something even more shocking. I have a home again, he murmured. He looked up at you. With you, the legacy of a meal. Generations later, historians across 2 galaxies would argue endlessly. What ended the war? What turned an empire's weapon into a savior? What united 2 species forever? Some said it was the Vir Code. Some said it was fate. Some said it was political inevitability. They were all wrong. It was simpler than that. A human offered a starving child food on a rainy night. A child offered 10,000 ships in return. And somewhere in the middle, the universe realized that the smallest act of kindness can alter the course of stars.